You know, I don't even really want a haircut right now, but that was good. Hey, everyone told me last time that I was using nail scissors. You know what? Guys, our nails too long. We should probably come up with something to fix that. Marty, there already exists this thing called nail clippers for that exact reason. Nail scissor. Ah! I didn't know they were nail scissors. I didn't know. Anyway. Kind of like the length of my hair, but
This is tradition.
okay, we have to follow with the tradition. I'm even wearing the same shirt as episode 1. Different scissors. Are these hair scissors? Could someone tell me? It says Le Pinko stainless. I could try to cut my nails with it. Oh, that worked seamlessly. Beautiful.
Oh, beautiful. Hello. I kind of want to sit on the toilet.
I'm gonna cut the literal least amount possible. So yes, the arsenic thing, right. I just got done with the job that I worked at with the arsenic, so I'm telling the story now. Basically, it's a little funny. Basically, I worked at a museum. My job was to cosplay as a dinosaur, specifically a triceratops, which let me tell you, the interview process for that, holy crap, they're not letting just anyone in the job. That was a long process. No, but anyway, I think I might have dulled it by cutting my nail. I just put lotion on my hands and now it's getting in my hair. I'm taking a shower after this, so it's fine. No, but I did work at a museum. My job was I was working at a computer. Okay, that was I'm just sitting there doing stuff and thing. I did not, unfortunately, get the Triceratops job that I applied for. Really bummed about that, but I did get a different job. So basically, the first day that I went there, my supervisor gave me a tour, so she showed me around the exhibits and whatever, which I had seen all the exhibits because I've been to that museum like a million times, which is why I wanted to apply there. This was an internship, so I was getting paid minimum wage. Yeah. So she showed me around the exhibits, and then we went up to the 3rd floor. This floor was restricted to only the staff and volunteers. You had to have a key card to get in there. Like when you go in the elevator, you like buzz there like a card on the elevator. You understand? Okay. So she's like introducing me to people and showing me around the upstairs, and then eventually we get to the room that I'm gonna be working in, which was basically this room with a collage of basically everything in the world, things that would go in the collections, the exhibits, blah blah blah. Also 2 computers, desktop computers. You go into the room, but then there's another room that goes off of that room. Now that was the restricted section. Yes, like in Harry Potter.
I said I'm fine, Ron.
So she's like, people can't just go back here, but I'm gonna bring you back here. And I'm like, she keys the thing in, and there's also like a code, like a lock code thing. So we go in, and it's basically this huge like vault of stuff, like old stuff that they would put in the exhibits that weren't currently on display. Maybe they were that they were just not displaying whatever it was at that time, or maybe it was something that they were trying to fix, or something new that they were trying to make ready to display. So we're walking around, and I'm like it's really cool because there's like so much, is like everything in there. Basically there was like baby carriages from like the 1800s and really old jewelry, like hundreds of years old, just like anything you could imagine in there. We turn a corner, she's like, I'm gonna open this metal like cabinet thing, and I'm like, okay, and she's like, do not touch the stuff that's in there. And I'm like, okay, no worries, like it's super old, you know, it's like really fragile, whatever. And so she opens it, like she gets a key and she opens it, and it's like old dresses, and they're all green, okay? And she's like, you smell that? Breathe in. And I'm like, we're like sniffing that shit up. She's like, you smell that? I'm like, yeah, like it smells musty, like old clothes, like old stuff. She's like, no, that's arsenic. okay. So I'm like, why did we just take in a breath long enough to survive 100 years underwater? Okay, so she closes it. She said that a lot of clothes used to be preserved in arsenic before they knew that it was extremely toxic. Okay, so she closes it. We keep going. She's showing me other things. She's like, touch nothing. And I'm like, hey, but wasn't gonna do that. She's like, all of this, almost everything in here has been preserved in arsenic. Because they didn't know how to do anything else. Apparently back in the old day, that's what they preserved. Like, you see this taxidermy beaver, half of it made of arsenic because oh, okay, that's fun. You know, she's like, all this arsenic everywhere. And I'm like, wonderful. I love that, actually. So, and the walkways that we were going through were like extremely small. I touched a lot of arsenic that day, okay? But don't worry, that's not the only time I did. So, oh, I'm supposed to be cutting my hair. So we go into another room that is off the restricted room. I don't know if this was like the restricted room. And there's a guy in there. Older gentleman. Maybe like 70. What is that? Oh my gosh, I was setting my scissors in some kind of weird sticky substance. Probably arsenic. Oh, what is that? And he's working on some like dinky doos. I don't know, he's doing stuff with some stuff. There's like more stuff in this room. There's like old things and museum-y stuff. They had like 15 samurai swords. I feel like that's 15 more than the average. She said that one of them allegedly belonged to George Washington when he came, something with a boat. Allegedly. You know, now I don't think George Washington was a samurai, but it doesn't mean he didn't have a samurai sword, you know what I mean? They had like 30 guns, really old guns. I mean, that's kind of the point of a museum, you know, old stuff. So at that point, I was already kind of like, I did not want to be in there. I'm like, this is cool and all, but I wish you did not show me this. You probably should not have told me any of this was made of arsenic and other toxic chemicals, because now I'm going to constantly think about that for the next 6 months while I work here every day. And I did. My shoe becomes untied, and I'm like, because I was holding my phone in my hand. I'm like, I don't want to like set this down for obvious reasons. And then, so I asked, I'm like, hey, could you like hold my phone for a second while I tie my shoe? So I tie my shoe and I'm just like, but she was touching things and now my phone has arsenic on it. So we go back out, she shows me like where I can work on the computer, blah, blah. I start working on the computer for maybe like 10 minutes and then I start looking up my phone. I'm like, scale of 1 to 10, how toxic we talking is arsenic?
Is this like bad? Is it bad? It turns out it's really bad.
Turns out it's actually one of the most toxic chemicals in the world. You can die from it by just breathing it in. But then I'm like looking up, I'm like, why would they use that? Okay. And it said that a lot of things were used to actually not only preserve things, but also dye things specifically green. And I was like researching this while I was supposed to be working. Yeah, like the arsenic dyes things green. And they also used it for paint. So like people would, when you would buy green paint, it would have arsenic in it. This was like hundreds of like the 1800s, at some point in the past. A lot of people died from that because they had green paint on their walls that had toxic stuff. Okay, and dresses especially because you're putting that directly on your body. Oh, how am I supposed to see the back of my head? Okay, when I went home, I got a cardboard box. I put my shoes in there. I grabbed a paper bag and put the clothes that I was wearing. Well, like the outside stuff, like my jacket, blah, blah, blah. And then the other stuff I washed multiple times in the washer. Immediately got in the shower, did 2 of everything. Okay, shampoo twice, body clean, wash twice, maybe even 3 times. Every day that I would go there, I would constantly be worried about it because it was like right there. Basically, this is like a perfect example. Like, you guys are my computer and this door is where the restricted area is. Right there. I could touch it with my hand when sitting down in the chair, and people would go by. I'm like, well, you know, that was like the only day that I'm gonna be in that room. You know, whatever. But then I started noticing that people, when they would come and work in the room that I'm in, because they also kind of fixed things in there, they had gloves and whatever, giant sink and a table with stuff labeled and blah blah blah. They would sometimes work on the stuff in there, but like also while working the computers. I worked on both of the computers, and so did everyone else that worked there that was like working on the stuff. So they would sit down and be working on it, the stuff that has arsenic on it, right at the computer, okay? And they would like they would put gloves on, but basically to not hurt, because like the oils in your hands can like hurt artifacts. So they would like have the gloves on, but they would like be like touching the stuff that had arsenic, and then they would like type on the computer with it, with their dirty gloves that they were touching directly on the computer. So, and they wouldn't clean the computers, like they wouldn't wipe off, even like you could wipe off arsenic, you know? So then I was like, oh my god. Because I wasn't thinking about that. So like I was like, oh, I'm probably just like breathing it in a little bit, but now I'm like directly touching it on my skin. Last week, they were very lax on too lax. I loved the people that worked there. I cried on the way home on my last day, but I was very concerned all the time about the safety protocols. Because it seemed like there was other interns that worked there as well, besides me, but they didn't have the same, we all had like different jobs that we were there for. The other ones were allowed to do just like whatever. They could go in like the restricted section, in the restricted room with the samurai swords, and they would like go and do things in there for fun. Like last week, they just went in there to play with acid. My supervisor was like, but you're gonna have like gloves and stuff, and they're like, yeah, we'll have gloves, and she's like, and goggles, and they're like,
No.
we don't need goggles.
You're playing with fucking acid.
Then they went in and then came back out after playing with the acid. I'm just like... Anyway, so my phone, because I had it there and it was on the counter where they would put all the arsenic-y stuff, and my computer, even after I washed my clothes like twice, I would keep them separate from my non-toxic clothes. You know? This one did go there. This one was exposed. Anyway. Yeah, so that's the story about that. Okay. But they would like touch, even when they had gloves on, they would like touch their face.
Like you're putting arsenic directly on your face and in your eyes.
But you know what I don't know, that was really it, okay. So, I'm gonna try to make my haircut look better. Bye bye. Hello and welcome back to Marie. Hello and welcome back to Marie Tells You About Toxic Chemicals she's ingested